Welcome to the Thought Brothers. I'm Gary Johnson. Today is the 7th of February. We got the banker man. We got plenty of money in this house tonight. And the banker man is he was just making it rain. So we just got finished picking up all the stuff off the floor.
How
So
about
whatever
that?
you see, if you see me looking down, I'm just trying to get some more Benjamins. But Carlos, kick it off, brother. Go ahead.
Hey, look, I'm just gonna say good evening, Gary. Good evening, CJ. Good evening, Mr. Spivey. Obviously it's Super Bowl week, and Donald Trump is not the headliner because it's Super Bowl week. It's more like
Citizen
Patrick.
Trump? You mean Citizen Trump, right?
Yeah, Citizen Trump. Well, yeah, Citizen Trump. He's not the headliner this week, but he's still in the news, but he's not the headliner.
That's
It's
right.
all about the Super Bowl, baby. It's all about Mahomes, Andy Reid, Shanahan, all that good stuff. But you
What
know
about Brock Purdy? What about Brock?
we give Brock Purdy a little. We can give Purdy a little Purdy. I mean, Purdy's all right. Purdy's cool. Actually, I think we on the last show we spoke about the fact that Brock was down to earth, and he's a young guy, and he hasn't signed his big contract yet. And Mr. Brock is rooming with some linemen, splitting that San Francisco community rent. That's crazy. It's probably like 5,000 a month for a 3-bedroom out there or something crazy. But anyway, good for Brock for getting to the big game. you know, Again, before we talk about that, to get us to where we're at with this Super Bowl, was it Super Bowl 58, if I'm not mistaken? Just wanted to, with being Black History Month in February, just want to give some shout outs to a couple people who sort of, paved the way. We're watching a game where Black quarterbacks weren't allowed to play quarterback in the NFL. They got converted mostly wide receivers and defensive backs in the late 60s and early 70s. And was that Marlon Briscoe for the Denver Broncos? First Black quarterback to start in an NFL game. And, later we had Joe Gilliam, who was able to start for Pittsburgh. And boy, the Pittsburgh cover, the Sports Illustrated cover from when he started his first game said Pittsburgh's Black quarterback. That just told you how the world was. It was just amazing to see a Black quarterback in the NFL, quarterback in the team. So we have come so far. And even though his story didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out for Joe Gilliam, because, he probably would have had those 4 Super Bowl rings if it wasn't for some personal issues and things like that. But because people say he was better than Terry Bradshaw. So, hey, but again, want to pay some homage to some of these guys who laid the foundation. And don't let me skip over my man Jim Brown. He did not win the Heisman Trophy. He's the greatest player probably in the history of college football, maybe of the world, and could not win the college football trophy, the Heisman Trophy, saying he was the best player, and they gave it to a white guy. And I think Jim Brown's successor, if I'm not mistaken, Ernie Davis, was
Ernie Davis.
the running back who came after him, who died of cancer. He actually was able to win the Heisman. So, we've come a long way. And then when you talk about the Super Bowl era, you're talking about, Eddie Robinson, the coach of Grambling, when he was asked in an interview, I guess before he passed, what were the, greatest things that happened in his life? He said, obviously his marrying his wife and his family, but also seeing a quarterback he coached named Doug Williams become the MVP in the Super Bowl and lead a team to victory in the Super Bowl as the first Black quarterback to do that, which is a great moment in history. I think when Doug Williams led that team to the former Washington Redskins to the Super Bowl championship, that what was it? He was not even the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. I think the only 2 starting Black quarterbacks in the league at that time were Randall Cunningham and Warren Moon. So out of 30 teams at that time, you're looking at 28 white quarterbacks and 2 Black quarterbacks. And then Doug Williams became the third as he picked up the starting job later in that season. Because of him, I think Black quarterbacks started to get drafted at a much higher level and frequency after they saw the excellence that he displayed in that Super Bowl. And, people may say, why was that big? I mean, again, you go back and check your history. I mean, Blacks, my father told me, he said it was pretty much wide speculation or wide fact from owners that Blacks just weren't smart enough to be quarterbacks. to hold that position, especially in the NFL. That's why they were mostly white owners and presidents, team presidents. They just weren't drafting black quarterbacks. So we really needed. We had a couple out there with Doug Williams when he played in Tampa. We had Vince Evans in Chicago, I think late 70s, early 80s. And like I said, we got Warren Moon and we got Randall Cunningham in the 80s. And, we really needed somebody to show they could play at the highest level and play flawless football. And I think that opened the door up to a lot of future draft picks of African-American quarterbacks. You fast forward to the last season, first time two African-American quarterbacks faced each other in a game. They give, Patrick Mahomes is biracial, but obviously his father's black. And then, we had Jalen Hurts. So that was a huge step on the biggest stage in the world. And then let's not forget about our man, a couple guys, right? Warren Moon went on as a quarterback. I'm all over the place with the NFL, but I'm tying this all together. So if you stay with me, Warren Moon did not win a Super Bowl, but he's the first black quarterback to be inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Okay. Tony Dungy, first black coach to win a Super Bowl. He actually faced Lovie Smith in the Super Bowl. So that was two black coaches going at it, almost 15 years ago now. And you think about the progress that's been made. Is it any different in society? Just excuses on why African Americans could not hold certain positions, whether it be on the football field, whether it be in the office, whether it be a 7-Eleven. I mean, literally, when I was a kid in elementary school in the 1970s, I mean, it seemed like everywhere I went, the manager was a white male. 7-Eleven, Safeway, Foot Locker, the bank, wherever you went, the manager was a white male. So I don't know if society was any different than the NFL or the sports in general, but I think with it being Black History Month, we really need to thank those guys, those Marlon Briscoes, those Joe Gilliams, Randall Cunningham, Warren Moon, Doug Williams, Tony Dungy, even Lovie Smith being there to coach against Tony Dungy in that Super Bowl. And now we're looking at Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes from last year. So I think as we enjoy the game, I think we need to count our blessings that we're getting closer. We're not where we need to be, but you know what? Progress in the right direction makes a huge difference. Anybody want to comment on that opening Super Bowl and Black History moment? How about you, Mr. Spivey? What you got on that?
I remember all of those times that you're talking about. And I remember when you didn't have black quarterbacks because they said they weren't smart enough. I remember they said that a quarterback could go to the line at the Dallas Cowboys and he could change the plays 10 times. And the quarterbacks were not smart enough to remember the different cadence and that type of thing. And, I always felt it was strange because if the white quarterback could change the plays 10 times on the line, you had black linesmen. So they needed to be able to understand the 10 changes in the plays. So that argument to me was flawed. But I remember when they talked the same thing about black pilots. If you want to go back in history, they said blacks could not be pilots because their brains weren't large enough to consume all of the things that went into aviation. That's one of the reasons I became a pilot, simply because of that stereotype. So, going back through history, I think things have changed, but I don't think they've changed as much as they need to change. And on that same vein, when you talk about Doug Williams winning the Super Bowl, he did come in. I think the guy's name was Tresh or something like that, who had been the starting quarterback.
Jay Schrader.
And he came in and he took over and took him to the Super Bowl. And they won the Super Bowl. He was the most valuable player, as I recall. And the next year they traded him, which I thought was a total disgrace.
Well, before I go to CJ and Gary, I'm going to give Mr. Spivey some credit for his favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, okay? Washington Redskins were the last team to integrate with a black player. But if I'm not mistaken,
That's right.
the Cowboys were the first team to integrate. And, growing up in the Washington area, I always tried to figure out why there were so many Dallas Cowboy fans. I mean, obviously they got the national TV contracts and stuff, but a lot of African Americans, parents and grandparents remember the fact that Dallas Cowboys accepted a black player. I guess the first NFL team. Well, not the first. It was it Marion Motley, I believe, Cleveland. There were a few black players in the league before, but Dallas came out in 1960 and accepted black players right away, just right away. So I think that carries a lot of weight. So hats off to the Cowboys today for you, sir.
and that's part of how they got that title, America's team. And if you recall, the Washington Redskins were the last team to integrate, and they only integrated at that point because the president of the United States told them if they didn't integrate, that they needed to move the team out of Washington, D.C.
Well, that's powerful. All right, I know I got a couple more minutes before I go. I want to go to CJ and Gary, but before I do that, let me just throw this out there in case the comments go a little longer. Thanks to the Rooney Rule, put in place in 2003, three black NFL coaches. And at the start of the 2023 season, there were 3 black NFL head coaches. I just want to give you guys, I don't know if we can celebrate, if we can play Celebrate Good Times by Kool and the Gang or whatever. As of right now, we have 6 black NFL head coaches slated for 2024. We have Coach Morris in Atlanta. Is that Coach Mayo in New England? Coach Pierce in Las Vegas with the Raiders. Obviously, Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin is still there. Tampa Bay's Todd Bowles is still there. And Houston's DeMarco Ryans really did a great job. So it took us 20 years to go from 3 to 3. And in the last, I guess, since the end of the season, we've gone from 3 to 6. So we are making progress and moving in the right direction. So CJ, any thoughts on that before we change over?
Yeah, we definitely made some progress, but I'm with Mr. Spivey. The progress has not been nearly enough. There's still a very, very plantation mindset with a lot of the owners. And you can see a way a lot of the coaches speak to the players and what they think of these players. A lot of these players coming from inner city, kind of not great circumstances and things like that. I remember there's a famous thing with Bill O'Brien telling DeAndre Hopkins about his baby mamas coming to practice and things like that. There's still, and I remember even when Lamar Jackson got drafted, people were telling him to switch positions. He needs to be a running back. He can't be a quarterback because he's all the typical stereotypical stuff. So as much progress as we made, even in the NFL with the Rooney Rule, there's still a lot of progress to be made with the fact that the majority of this league is African American. And even going back to college ranks, how many black college coaches do we have with over 100 programs and things like that? So still a lot of work to be done, but there is progress. We got to be grateful for the little bit of progress that we have achieved.
And shout out to Magic Johnson for being an African-American minority owner in the NFL. We got to start somewhere. All right, Gary, take it away.
Hey, man, I'm just going to come out and edit in before I hand it off to CJ for his time. A little Black history fact in photos. I have in the archives a photo of CJ Johnson and Doug Williams. I got it somewhere in the archives. I'm pulling it out for the show. CJ and Doug Williams. And I might even find the one with CJ and who's the other one, CJ? The first one you met, Dave Winfield.
Dave Winfield, right?
Yeah, Dave Winfield. So yeah, CJ's been a Cub reporter for a long time. All right, CJ, come on now. You got your block. Let's go.
All right, I'm going to transition into politics as usual a little bit. I'm going to start with the
surprise.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I don't want to be talking about this stuff, but it just happens to be important and in the news. Trust me, I would love to not talk about politics, but we're going to start on the Republican side. This was actually a little bit more entertaining. I really enjoyed this story because the Nevada primary, Donald Trump was not on the ballot. And Nikki Haley still lost the primary. She lost the primary by about 30% to, let me read. I have the exact the polling thing, but the options were pretty hilarious. Nikki Haley lost an election to the oh, here it is. None of these candidates was the winner at 61% of the vote. So Nikki Haley and Mike Pence lost to none of these candidates since Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot, which is a death sentence for her campaign, honestly. because that's really embarrassing to go to a state and lose to literally, you gave the people the option of none of these people, and that option overwhelmingly won. So it's Donald Trump's party, no matter what the Republican establishment wants. They want Nikki Haley because Nikki Haley is a stronger candidate for the general election. Donald Trump being unhinged and insane is kind of a turnoff to most independents. So they want Nikki Haley as a more moderate, sane choice. But the voters don't want that. Republican voters are speaking loud and clear. They don't want anybody but Trump. That's all they want. So that's kind of good for Democrats because, again, Trump is the weaker candidate to go against whoever they run. But it's kind of telling for the Republican Party that they are just not interested in anybody but Donald Trump. Like the cult is still going strong, and that spells problems for America because we got the transition to the Democrats. We're having more issues with Joe Biden and his cognitive abilities this week. There are a couple speeches this week. Dean Phillips, he's a pretty establishment Democrat, highlighting, well, the first one was Joe Biden, people trying to defend him saying, oh, he misspoke. He said, oh, the German president instead of the French president. The problem was he kept going, referring to the French president Mitterrand, who had died in 1996. And that is who he is going about talking about. He talked to Mitterrand, and like, I guess he was mistaking him for Macron, the current president of France. But this is the type of issues we're talking about. And then there was another speech this week where he was trying to articulate what their strategy was in the Gaza situation, and he just couldn't. And he was struggling to come up with words or even give a coherent statement. So when the most powerful person in the world is trying to give a statement to clarify our position on something, we should probably pick somebody that could speak and that could go through with complete coherent sentences, and someone who doesn't think it's 1996. That's would be a bar because, again, we're threatening all of democracy. Donald Trump's already said if he doesn't win the election, he's going to contest it. He's going to try to steal it. He's going to go all out. So I don't think we should be running somebody who should be in a nursing home to try to run against Donald Trump with all of democracy on the line. And I also wanted to push back on MSNBC, and I've seen some of these segments this week, kind of baffled about why young people are not just going to suck it up and vote for Joe Biden. And they reference some things like, oh, why aren't they so happy about he did the student loans for you guys? He did student loan forgiveness. And I want to clarify to people why people aren't giving him as much credit for that. He did do some student loan forgiveness after he promised to forgive all student loans. Of course, you don't always go all the way with your campaign promises. That's understandable. But the issue is he could have canceled all the student loans. He chose not to. He chose to go through Congress, which he knew it was going to get slapped down. And then he proceeded to forgive some student loans. So how many student loans did he forgive? He forgave 0.01% of student loans. It's like a 0.1% of all student loan debt is what he forgave. So again, that's good for the small amount of people that he did cancel their student loans, but that's not a big enough number to swing an election or to be like, hey, give me credit for doing 1% of what I promised to do in the campaign trail. That's a very Joe Biden thing to do the bare minimum and just to be like, hey, I'm not Donald Trump. He would have gave you 0%, but I gave you 0.1%. So give me credit. That's not a great argument to try to distinguish yourself from the other administration. Another issue is the border deal. I don't know if you guys have heard the Republicans and Democrats fighting over a border deal, which would shove more billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel, but also Joe Biden basically caved and gave the Republicans everything they wanted in that deal. And again, if you're trying to differentiate yourself from Donald Trump and say, hey, I'm the more humane option, you can't copy his policies and then run against him and say, I'm not him. When you're running on the same policies, you're bragging about giving the Republicans everything they want in this bill. No path to citizenship, nothing for dreamers, just a cruel immigration bill. And then the Republicans slap it down because that's not a problem that they even want to solve. They're a deeply unserious party. They can't run on a problem if they solve it. They can't fundraise on a problem if they solve it. So they're not interested in it. But again, it goes back to Joe Biden's impulse to cave to Republicans while ignoring 80% of his base that are asking for a ceasefire. And to go back to Gaza, it turns out they are cutting aid off to the aid organization, giving aid to the Palestinians based on Israel's word for it. Again, as usual, it turns out after investigation, there's no evidence for Israel's claims, but we still cut off the aid to the most important aid organization in Gaza. So situations like that, when the State Department is pressed on their logic or why are we not really following international law? There's no answers to it. And that's not really acceptable. And then have a president that can't even articulate his strategy is really dangerous. We're on dangerous territory. So while Joe Biden wants to send 17 billion or something to Ukraine and some more billions to Israel, there's more reporting that came out this week and what's going on domestically at home, that 62% of people can't afford rent or live paycheck to paycheck. 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Most people can't afford a home. The median income to get a home is just far above what people are making. So can't buy a home. Oh, and the third one, McDonald's has reported that they're losing business because their prices are so high that people are just going to buy groceries, which are also high. So people are literally in this economy being priced out of McDonald's, which is not anecdotal, because if you go into McDonald's, there used to be something called a dollar menu. Doesn't exist anymore. It used to be combo, you get like $5, get a whole meal. That's not a thing anymore. You go to McDonald's, you're spending like $8 on a combo, $9. So this is the reality we're living in America. And there are two political parties that have no interest in doing anything about these domestic issues and are really, really determined to just send more money overseas for Israel to do genocide. So that is one of the reasons young voters are so disaffected and not really on board with Biden, despite him just saying he's not Donald Trump. Well, people acknowledge that. But again, if you don't draw policy distinctions between you and Donald Trump, that's the reason that a lot of people don't feel the difference between the two administrations. And that's going to lead us right into another Trump term, which again, as much as I trash Biden, I don't want to see another Trump term. I don't want to see Donald Trump be president, but the onus on that is for Joe Biden to defeat him. If he's going to be the candidate, he should probably do something to defeat Donald Trump and to make sure we don't have a fascist in the White House again. So that's what I have. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Well, I do have something to add. I listened to what you said, and the thing that troubles me a lot of times with young people is sometimes I say to myself, did they sleep through civics class or did they even sleep through history class? I've been reading about Biden has been blamed for the high gas prices. The president does not control the cost of gas. Biden has complained he's been given problems because of the high food prices. And you talked about the immigration bill. There's an immigration bill before that the Republicans and the Democrats drafted. It's supposed to be the most effective immigration bill ever, but it's not being brought to the floor of the House. Young people would probably blame Biden, but if you know your civics, the bill can't come to the floor of the House without the Speaker of the House bringing the bill. Donald Trump is on the phone every day with Johnson, and he's telling them, do not bring the bill before the Congress, simply because he wants it to collapse, and he wants it done on Biden's watch. You talk about Biden, your president, your former president of the United States, has said verbally in rallies and everything else that he wants the economy to crash. Now, this is a man who says, I want the economy to crash. Why does he want it to crash? He wants it to crash on Biden's watch. So what I'm going to say to young people, and I'm going to talk about this later, is you're continuously complaining about Biden. You don't want Donald Trump. Then what I think young people should do is, rather than continuously complain, is find a solution to the problem. You still have 9 months. Find a Gen Z, find a Gen Y or whatever, and put them out there to run against Donald Trump and Biden. And I can tell you, I think you've said several times on the podcast that the Nation of Islam don't like Biden. The Muslims don't like Biden. Well, then in the Nation of Islam, there's a young brother. His name is Reza Islam. Very sharp, sharper than Farrakhan. You got a Dr. Wesley Muhammad. You got Nuri Muhammad. So you got people out there that the young people can put out there to run against Trump and Biden But when you continuously trash Biden, it appears as though you're pulling for Trump. And that's my take on it. Carlos, if you see something different, you can say it.
Well, I'll tell you like this. Bottom line is, you know, after looking at everything from all the candidates, we're going to be better off if Biden wins. Biden is not the preferred choice of young people or most people, okay? But Trump will take us backwards. I mean, he'll have benefits for rich folks and for business owners and tax breaks and things like that. But for the people who are really suffering from day to day, who can't, who like I said, are getting priced out of McDonald's, can't pay the rent, can't buy a house, you're better off giving Biden another shot to try to work on these things than for Trump. Because Trump, be honest with you, those aren't his priorities.
Not at all.
His priorities are to get real estate moving again. His priorities are to get small businesses, tax breaks, tax incentives, to give the wealthy who own the owners of the corporations or the major stockholders, make them richer. And he's going to explain that by if we give them more wealth and give them more control, then they'll be able to hire more people. That's going to be his play. It's not going to be anyone who's struggling to pay rent, buy a house, or just trying to get ahead with basic things in life. I think that overall we do have an issue with politics in the country. They're trying to impeach I'm looking at a Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas. Look, I've been watching impeachment trials since Clinton in the mid to late 90s, and it's just a waste of tax dollars. You're talking about who got impeached, and Trump got impeached twice, and Clinton got impeached once, and they trying to, man, ain't nobody lost their job. They still finished their terms. That was just political stunts to try to make people look bad, and we're wasting money. So I think overall, our politicians need to make better decisions with their use of money and time. And like I said, we hope Biden wins. It's just so many Trump supporters out there. All we can do is, as an individual, is go to the polls and vote. So I'm saying, hey, everybody who watches us and everybody who's listening, go vote. Don't think somebody's automatically going to win because that's what you're hearing in the news. Let's make them actually go out there and earn it, and we'll see what happens. But yes, we do need some new superheroes in the world of politics, and hopefully they'll come up soon.
Yeah, I just want to respond to a couple things. Well, one thing, I agree with you, Carlos. I know those aren't Donald Trump's priorities, but the issue is they're not Joe Biden's priorities either, which is what got us in this place in the first place where people even question that. So again, like I know that because I'm into politics. I know Donald Trump is no man of the people, and he's not going to be any better on those issues. But again, you can't convince somebody because Joe Biden also doesn't give a damn about those issues. And also to Mr. Spivey's question of why don't young people run someone else? Young people don't run the DNC. Young people we don't have the power to make that decision. We would absolutely love to run somebody younger and more progressive. Like that would be the dream. But like Nancy Pelosi run the DNC and the Democratic levels of power, and they won't allow a young candidate with any type of progressive values anywhere near the levers of power. So that's the frustration with young people is they don't have a say. Like if we could had the power to run a candidate, and that would, yeah, obviously they wouldn't be running with Joe Biden. So yeah, I don't understand what you expect young people to do because young people aren't the ones with the political power in DC to run a candidate and to have the infrastructure to run a campaign like that.
Let me just say something about Citizen Trump. I think his priority is to get elected and pardon himself and stay out of jail.
Exactly right.
I agree.
Exactly 100%.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
you know, Carl, I think CJ still got 5 minutes left.
No, it's on you.
No,
This
sure.
is you.
It's on me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Well,
take
you
it away,
know,
Mr. Spivey.
hey,
Come off the top rope. Come off the top rope.
I'll keep it going with Donald Trump. You know,
Okay.
simply because my man is not looking real well right now. He lost $83 billion civil suit to the lady last week. And it looks like the Judge Ingron is going to make a decision sometime this week. And he's looking at paying somewhere north of $375 million to in civil liability. And I think his sons had to come up with 10.5 mil. So Donald Trump supposedly his net worth is somewhere around $2.6 billion, and that is including real estate, and that's part of his net worth. But as far as his cash worth, I think it's around 426 million. So if you take a $400 million civil suit in New York, and you take an $83 million suit with E.G. Carroll, I think the brothers got some some cash flow problems. And he came out the other night in a speech, and he told his base that this is a serious time, and they need to send him money now. And so it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to come up with $83 million to help him with this civil suit against E.G. Carroll. But one of the things that I'm not sure people are aware is this civil award that was given to Carroll for the $83 million. He's planning to appeal this. Now, an $83 million judgment in a civil case does not work like a bond that's needed in a criminal case. In order to appeal this case, Donald Trump has to put up $83 million. And that's not going to be in real estate. If he loses this case, which is 100% sure he's going to lose in New York, the civil case, and he has to come up, and it's 400 million. He's got to come up with $400 million in cash to appeal it. So I think the brother is going to have a hard time, and he's not keeping the same attorney that he had for the case of E.G. Carroll because she didn't win and she didn't help him. So he's going to be looking for an attorney. So I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
He can't find competent attorneys anymore. He doesn't pay them.
Yeah, and I think also after Rudy Giuliani with that civil suit, I think that you probably have some attorneys that are shying away. I think he'll probably be able to get one of those attorneys like was on Empire towards the end. I forgot Bubbles, the guy Bubbles from The Wire, who was like the attorney on Empire or something like that.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I think that was his nickname. Because reputable attorneys don't want to ruin their name. I mean, even if he becomes president again, he's not president for life, and these guys are still going to be practicing law beyond 4 years. So people are starting to think a little bit more about what they're associated with, what cases they're taking. And if they can still be millionaires without taking Donald Trump's case, they're probably going to not take Donald Trump's case. So I think somebody will take it because there's always a lawyer out there struggling who needs to get paid. But that'll be a risk that will be taken by someone who's not as competent as a top flight lawyer or attorney. So I think that's what you're looking at. So it'll be some shakeups. Someone once told me the best way to get people's attention is to hit them in the wallet. So
right.
Yeah, he's getting hit in the wallet right now. And you're right. I did hear about that. Even though his net worth is so many billions, most of it's tied up in real estate, stocks, things he can't touch. And working in finance, I can tell you that that happens. I mean, people have they have great net worths, but as far as the actual cash, that's a different story. So we'll see what happens on this one.
Yeah, I
All
definitely
right,
think
go ahead,
he's
CJ.
definitely I don't even think he wants to be president again. I kind of agree that he just wants to stay out of prison and wants to stay out of jail, and like that's the best way to do it is to be able to pardon himself and also get revenge on the people that he feels like put him through this. So I think like that is his main drive to be president. But it's also dangerous because he's trying to debate Joe Biden and they're not having it. Joe Biden can't debate anybody. So to put them on the debate stage is not going to help anybody, unfortunately. And he's really pressing for a debate. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't think the Democrats will let that happen because they know that Joe Biden's not capable of debating anyone.
I
All
don't think I don't think the point of Donald Trump wanting to debate Joe Biden, Donald Trump wants to embarrass Joe Biden.
Yeah, he
Because
would
even
through a
in
debate.
even in Joe Biden's state, Joe Biden has 40 years in politics. I remember when Joe Biden was running the committee hearings when Clarence Thomas was up for the judge. I work with Joe Biden every day.
He
Joe
used to be
Biden
a
is
great debater. Like he
Joe
used to be
Biden is
great.
a very smart man. Trump wants to embarrass Joe Biden because I will tell you, in any debate, Trump couldn't hold a candle to Joe Biden. Because number one, Trump does not know politics. Trump was never a politician. Trump was a reality star who became president. And
So you're
Ronald Reagan was a actor who became president. But guess what? Before he became president, he was the governor of California, which is one of the largest states, and he learned politics. Donald Trump knows absolutely zero about politics. And when I talked about civics and history, he slept through that course, either he failed it. Because when he was president of the United States, he didn't think he had to go to Congress for a damn thing. That if you're president, you're king, and you can do whatever you want. So as far as a debate with Joe Biden, I wouldn't debate with Joe Biden because it's not a thing of Joe Biden's congressy. It's a thing of why do you want to sit around and throw mud with somebody who is, in my point, is ignorant. He's not intelligent at all. He's not going to give you a word that's more than 4 syllables. And when you sit down to try to talk to him about what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Iran, or whatever, he can't converse on that subject. So Biden would want to debate him on issues and policy. Trump is not going to debate on policy. Trump is going to debate on being a bully.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like, I think you're right. If this was 8 years ago and Joe Biden was a little bit more mentally, cognitively sharp. Now, I'm not talking about the issues. Obviously, Joe Biden is more educated on the issues. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the spectacle of debate and the fact that Joe Biden can't remember what year it is and can't string together a complete sentence. There was a poll that came out today that the American people actually think Trump is more mentally competent than Joe Biden. That's insane. We all can acknowledge that's insane, right? Because Donald Trump is crazy. And like you said, his IQ is probably like in the single digits. But the fact that he can speak in complete sentences right now and Joe Biden can't is the issue right now. It's not that Joe Biden is not more politically educated and doesn't know the issues better. I don't think anybody would debate that Joe Biden doesn't know the issues better. But can he articulate that in front of the world, which is the issue? Donald Trump is a con man. He never knew the issues, but he smacked Hillary Clinton around on that debate stage. He did some because of the spectacle, not because he's intelligent or not because he knows the issues, but because he's a good con man and he can think on his feet and things like that. So I'm not saying that Donald Trump is educated or knows the issues or is qualified in any way, but there's a reason that Joe Biden and the Democrats will not allow Joe Biden to debate anybody. He wouldn't even debate Marianne and Dean Phillips. So if he can't handle that, you think he can handle Trump, as you said, who's going to be slinging mud, who's going to be doing all the dirtiest tricks, and like I understand why the Democrats would not want to have Joe Biden debate anyone right now.
You guys are really saying the same thing.
Well, personally, if Joe Biden was cognizant and it was 10 years ago, I would not waste my time debating Donald Trump. Because when you tell me that what was it you just said about the American people? In a poll, a recent poll?
There was like 52% that chose Trump as more mentally competent than Joe Biden right now. Like independent. That's crazy.
I'm going to tell you, that is a sad state of affairs for the American people. And that tells me just how ignorant people have become.
Well, are they ignorant though? Because like, if we're talking about mental competency.
And also, where was the poll done? Did you even dig into that?
Where was the poll done? I don't remember.
Where was the poll conducted? Because if I want a poll to say that so-and-so is the best person, go back to Carlos. If I want a poll that says that there should be more black quarterbacks in the NFL, then I do a poll.
From a reliable source.
Then I do a poll in Atlanta. I do a poll in Detroit. I do a poll in Washington, D.C. If I want a poll that says there shouldn't be more black quarterbacks, I do a poll in Montana. I do a poll in Idaho.
That's true.
So I'm looking at where the polls are and where the source of the polls are. Anybody can come up with a poll. Current events today are very tricky. And what is important is the credibility of the source.
All right.
And that's my time.
All right, Carlos.
Yes.
You got 3 minutes. The referee's not looking. You got some brass knuckles in your shorts, so in your trunks. Come on off the top rope. You got 3 minutes, and then we're gonna roll to CJ and close out with Mr. Spivey. Go.
Okay, I'm gonna reverse it. I'm gonna go politics, and I'm gonna go sports. Okay, politically, people come out, people vote. No matter what happens, you vote in your primary, you vote in your local elections. You got to vote every opportunity you get. You have to vote. If you don't vote, then don't complain about who's in or who's out. You know what? The world is not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have the perfect car, the perfect home. Some people think that they'll never have the perfect spouse, and some people just settle. I mean, that's just the reality, right? And even though everybody on this show got the perfect spouse, but you know what I'm saying, right? So the point is, I'm trying to say is that you have to represent. You have to be heard and voice your opinion the best you can, regardless of the situation. So please come out and vote. And then also, I do agree with what Mrs. Spivey said. You know, what are people doing? Are people just complaining about everything? So what are people doing in their own community to try to help, make the world a little bit better place? I mean, I know people are just trying to go to work, and I know people are just trying to pay their bills. But, do you attend one local community event a month just to get your voice out there in the community, just to try to help prevent crime, or just try to help? Do you go to church once a month, and maybe when they have a summit on what they can do to help the community and feed people for the holidays? I mean, I think we do have to ask ourselves at some point, what are we doing? And it doesn't have to be consistent. I mean, but what are we doing? I mean, to contribute to our communities to try to make them better? Because obviously, based on what I heard tonight, we can't depend on the leaders of the free world to do it, because, some people think one guy's not competent. Some people think the other guy's crazy, and they're probably both right. But at the end of the day, we have to do something to help ourselves. And also, those smaller elections can help really determine the course of a community, with a mayor, with a governor, right? We got governors saying they're not going to do certain things that the federal government wants. If you get a strong enough governor, you can protect your state probably to a certain extent. So I think all these things have to come into play. We have to look at all our resources. We have to look at what we can do, and we have to be heard. With that being said, I hope they don't try to impeach anybody anymore for the next 30 years or 100 years or whatever, because we just waste millions and millions of dollars every time they try to impeach somebody, because it never works. The person still has the job and they finish their term. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going with Patrick Mahomes' game-winning drive. The game will be tied, I'm going to say, at 31-31, and Patrick Mahomes is going to take it, down the field, and they're not going to kick a field goal. He's going to go for the dagger and try to score a game-winning touchdown. So the final score would probably be somewhere, I'll say 38-31, Kansas City. Boom. That's
Okay, CJ, go.
All right, I'm just gonna, I guess, finish up the reason young people are disaffected beyond the fact that the president thinks it's 1996, and it's basically another reason that young people are really, really disaffected is because, like, one, we don't have a lot of Black leaders, and we should have had one, because a lot of people in my generation, the first person that they voted for was Barack Obama, and you would think, we would have a strong Black leader that we would look up to in the community, but a lot of young people in my age group kind of despise Barack Obama because of his presidency, honestly, because he activated a lot of young voters who vote for the same time based on his campaign of hope and change. And then he got in and, in his own words, governed like a moderate Republican. He governed as if he was Tim Scott. And that is not what people asked for. And that disengaged all those people he politically engaged in the process, and showed them that even if well, let me rephrase it like this. He showed everyone that it was supposed to be to show everyone that what is possible, that a Black man can make it to the White House, and that should be inspirational. But what it really revealed is that a Black man could also sell out just like any other white president. And if you take enough lobbyist money, if you bail out enough bankers who crash the economy, if you drone strike enough people, then they'll allow you close to the levers of power, no matter if you're Black or not. And I think that's the lesson it really showed the young generation, that it's great. He has some great speeches and the symbolism was great, but he didn't do anything with the power in there, which is what is truly important policy-wise as president. And we used to have Black leaders, and the government killed them all. So, I mean, we did have Martin Luther Kings and Fred Hamptons and Malcolm X's, but you saw how the government treated them. and why we don't have black. And now they celebrate athletes and rappers and say that those are our leaders. And that's where we're at right now. So in terms of the youth being disaffected, I think Barack Obama and his presidency had a huge part of that, as despite him being like a likable personality and have great speeches and things like that. At the end of the day, his legacy for us, at least, is to be someone who was an impediment to progress, even though he ran as somebody who would be progressive, or at least slightly progressive. And then he basically ended up having the role to tell young people that change is too much. You're hoping for too much. Calm down. Incrementalism is the way to go. Let's work with these grand, fine Republicans, even though they said I was born in Kenya and would never work with me. But let's give them everything they want because they're, the decorum of Washington. And it really just, like I said, it disengaged a lot of people who did have hope in the system and that would be Democrats who would be excited about somebody like Joe Biden. But Joe Biden is running the same playbook. So this is where we are. And another reason that young people are really disaffected, even when there are young black leaders, if they have the same policy sensibilities as an Obama or a Biden.
Okay. Coming in the cage match is William H. Spivey. He's coming in the match. He's closing the gate. You are on. You on.
Up at the top left, you see something that says, I'm going to tell it like it is, and I hope you can take it like it is. I decided last week that I was going to do my own poll with young people. And I have to say, I was very disappointed. I just listened to Carlos talk about Obama and the things that he didn't do. And I wonder if young people know that when Obama was in the White House, it was a Republican-controlled Congress, and he was a Democratic president. And when you got a Republican-controlled Congress and you're a Democratic president, you catch hell trying to get anything through Congress. And I remember what he went through to try to get Obamacare and all of the hell that he caught. But putting that aside, I decided I wanted to do my own poll of some young people. And I have to say, I was sickened by what I heard. I talked to some guys over in the Southeast area. I guess you could say they were streetwise. And they were young people in the Gen Z, I guess that's what you call it. And they talked about how Donald Trump put money in their pocket back when he was president of the United States. And that, when COVID came along, Donald Trump put $600-700 a month in their pocket. Then they went on to say that Donald Trump was very respected because he's got cred. They said, how many people do you know can tell a judge to kiss my ass and don't go to jail? So he's got cred on the street. So, I've come to the point that I hope young people don't vote. They haven't voted since Obama in any numbers. I've looked at the numbers. They didn't vote real big in 2016. They didn't vote real big in 2020. So if they don't vote in 2024, I don't think nothing's going to be lost. And I really hope they don't, because from what I'm hearing from young folks, what I think they should do is they should either not vote, or either they should go and get a red cap and pick up the Trump envelope and contribute. And that's what I got to say about it. That's my last word.
So
All
I have
right.
a few things. Do you think that's effective voter outreach, though, to young people to go tell them to pick up a red hat instead of try to
Well,
make a
the reason I think they should do it is because when you constantly put somebody down on one side, it builds somebody up on the other side. So you're constantly putting Biden down. He's 1,000 years old. He can't speak a coherent sentence. So if you only have two choices and you're constantly saying this person is bad, what's left? Donald Trump.
People saying the other
And
person's bad too. They could say both people are bad.
well, no, but you're saying that one is worse than the other.
I don't
You're
think
saying
anyone
that
said he's worse.
you're saying that Trump is coherent, Biden is incoherent. Trump is 1,000. I mean, Biden is 1,000 years old. Trump is more cognizant than he is. So the bottom line is, who do you want? It's like my wife said to me, if you got chicken over here and beef over here, and you don't want meat, you become a vegetarian.
Yeah, so that's not voting and not voting for Trump, but also for the Obama points. Obama did have a supermajority when he passed Obamacare, which is Mitt Romney's healthcare plan. That's a Republican plan that he fought to get across.
But also, who else was he fighting in Congress at the time? Newt Gingrich was there. What did they say? They said Obama was going to be a one-term president. If a
And
president
those are the
does
people he was
not,
working with.
if a president does not have his party in Congress, you catch hell trying to get something through. I think you're giving Obama a bad rap because Obama did not have a Democratic Congress.
He had a
Young
Democratic
people,
supermajority for
young
part of his
people
term.
need to understand that in government, you have the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. And that's what's called a system of checks and balances. The president can't just arbitrarily come up and say, well, I'm going to do this. Like you talked about with the student loan forgiveness. You said Biden went to Congress. Biden had to go to Congress.
He did not have to go to Congress. He did have it. He had executive order power to do that. And that's something Trump would have done for his agenda. It would be something terrible, but he would have used that power. Biden had the power, refused to use it.
Well,
and
you
that's
can
why
rest
0.1
assured.
of people have their debt forgiven instead of more.
Hey
Like,
guys,
that's a choice.
let me throw something in there real quick. I mean, we can go back and forth on Trump and Biden all night. Look, I can't even believe at my age that I have now seen 10 presidents. Yes, I was a little kid and I remember watching that floor model color TV in the early 70s when Nixon got on a plane or said something he wasn't a crook and then he flew out on one of them helicopters. And I'm just telling you that from that moment on, I think I just started to pay attention a little bit more to news and what was happening in Washington and things like that. And I can just tell you that, in the 10 that I've seen, how it's affected my parents, how it affected me as a teenager in the 80s or as a young man in the 90s, because Clinton was the first president I ever voted for. I can just tell you this. Obama was, to me, the best president we had. We can complain about all the presidents you want to complain. Things were really bad, especially for African Americans and people who were poor. During those Republican administrations and during Reagan's administration in the 80s, I mean, just ask the Junkyard Band. They even made a song about it, Word and Sardines and everything. It was bad. I mean, things were bad. So the problems we got right now that we're talking about, yes, they're bad too. But, unemployment, we're talking about just all the things that are happening. Yes, they're bad. They're very bad. But I'm telling you, it was really bad. It was really bad to honest people. You worry about people who didn't have education or who didn't have jobs who were committing crimes. There were lots of honest people committing crimes just to put food on their table. People writing bad checks on purpose to put food in. I mean, it was so bad that I'm telling you that that Obama, regardless of what you see, from what I've seen so far, Obama was the best president we had. To me, Biden is different from Obama because Biden has a problem with selling his ideas to people. Does that mean they're bad ideas or that's bad policy? Yeah, you can disagree with him all day. The problem was, the thing was, Obama could sell his with his charisma, he could sell the things he wanted to do a lot better. Was he perfect? No, he wasn't perfect. But if you got to go back to compare him to the Reagan days and the first Bush days, and I'm telling you, so I think we all may need to do a little bit more history. I know Mr. Spivey lived through it as an adult. Gary, you lived through it as an adult. I'm a kid coming up, and CJ, you probably, started to experience, I'm assuming, the Clinton years forward. But as bad as things are, they can definitely be worse. Like, we were literally one button away from the whole world being annihilated in what, 1983 or 1984, that later reports came out. You wouldn't be worried about any war or employment or poverty. It was that bad. It was almost a nuclear war. I mean, things were messed up. Okay, so if we're still here, we're still alive, we're still breathing, we have a choice to vote for president. I think we have to go with that. And I'm gonna defend Obama for the simple fact that in the 10 presidents that I saw, he was the best one. I don't think any of them are perfect. You know what? I'm born in Washington, D.C., and I never want to get into politics. I hope I don't. But after this conversation tonight, maybe I need to consider it because somebody got to do something. But we'll see what happens. But I'm just saying, please keep an open mind to some of the things we're saying. We're all going to feel a certain way, but I still believe the best thing we can do, what President Kennedy said, stop asking what your country can do for you and then do
Ask
something
what
for
you
your
can
country.
do for your country.
Yeah, I think
That's
at some point we got to step up. We got to vote. We got to step up and be heard. And you know what? Heck, he became president of the United States at 43. It's not to say that we can't have you're eligible at 35 to run for it. I mean, so maybe we need to get back out there and be more politically active as a community, as opposed to always complaining about everything. And if we're not carrying our own weight in our own community, how can we blame everybody else? It's never going to be perfect. I'm telling you, there's no perfection. Vince Lombardi, the football coach, said perfection is not attainable. There will never be political perfection. But if we pursue it, we can achieve excellence. So we can chase perfection, but it's always going to be something wrong. You have to choose between the lesser of two evils, and right now, to me, that's Biden.
All right, CJ, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's asking for perfection. I think people just wanted some health care. And I just definitely double checked too that the Democrats did have a supermajority going into 2008. But so I don't think anyone's asking for the president to be perfect or give anyone everything they want. They just want the basic things like maybe health care, an affordable, living situation, things like that, things that most developed countries around the world have. I think that's all people are asking for. I don't think anyone's asking for perfection from any elected official. That's obviously not realistic.
All right.
Game 31-31 late in the fourth, but Mahomes is not going to go for the field goal position. He's going to take them down for a game-winning drive. Final score 38-31.
Carlos on this one. I'm gonna go with the better quarterback, and I'm gonna go with Mahomes on this one.
I believe Kansas City's gonna win, and I would put my money on Mahomes, but I'm going to go with San Francisco. And the reason I'm going to go with San Francisco is Carlos is going with Kansas City. And Carlos had Kansas City over Baltimore, and they lost. Carlos had Detroit over San Francisco, and they lost. So I'm not getting on Carlos' wagon, even though I think Kansas City going to win. I'm going with San Francisco because Carlos, if you betting with him in Las Vegas, you gonna lose.
Hey, I was good last year. I was good. This year has not been a good year, but I'm going to redeem myself for the Super Bowl.
All right, folks. Enjoy the game. We are the Thought Brothers. We are out of here.